Imagine an island so densely packed with people that it made modern Tokyo look spacious. Now imagine that same island, completely abandoned, left to crumble into the sea. This is Hashima Island, though you might know it by its more dramatic name, Battleship Island. Located about 15 kilometers off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan, this tiny island looks like a concrete warship rising from the ocean. But this isn't a military installation. It's the ruins of what was once one of the most densely populated places on Earth, a thriving industrial city built on coal ambition and, ultimately, human suffering. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of Hashima Island, a story of rapid rise, sudden abandonment, and the dark chapters of history that lurk beneath its crumbling concrete walls. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this abandoned island has captured the imagination of filmmakers, photographers, and historians around the world. Our story begins in the late 1800s, when Hashima was nothing more than a small, barren rock jutting out of the East China Sea. The island was tiny, less than 16 acres, basically the size of a few city blocks. No one lived there. There was nothing particularly special about it. But in 1887, everything changed. Coal was discovered beneath the island. And not just any coal. High-quality coal that could fuel Japan's growing industrial ambitions. 3 years later, in 1890, the Mitsubishi Corporation purchased the island and began one of the most ambitious mining operations in Japanese history. They weren't just going to mine the island. They were going to transform it into a fortress of industry. Mitsubishi engineers began constructing undersea mining shafts that extended deep beneath the ocean floor. At its peak, these shafts reached nearly 1,000 meters below sea level. Miners would descend into darkness, working in sweltering heat and dangerous conditions to extract the black gold that would power Japan's transformation into a modern industrial nation. But here's the challenge. How do you convince workers to move to a tiny rock in the middle of the ocean with no space and constant danger? Mitsubishi's answer was simple but radical. Build them a city. This is where Hashima Island's story gets truly remarkable. Between 1916 and the 1950s, Mitsubishi constructed Japan's first large-scale concrete apartment buildings on the island. These weren't just any buildings. They were engineering marvels designed to withstand typhoons, saltwater corrosion, and the violent storms that regularly battered the island. The apartment blocks rose higher and higher, creating a skyline that looked more like a military fortress than a residential area. In fact, when viewed from the sea, the island's silhouette resembled the Japanese battleship Tosa, earning it the nickname Gunkanjima, or Battleship Island. By 1959, Hashima Island reached its peak population, over 5,200 people living on just 16 acres of land. To put that in perspective, that's a population density of approximately 835,000 people per square mile. Manhattan, one of the most densely populated places in the world today, has a density of about 70,000 per square mile. Hashima was nearly 12 times more crowded. Space was so precious that the entire island was surrounded by massive sea walls to prevent erosion and protect against typhoons. Not an inch was wasted. Buildings were connected by narrow corridors and staircases. The streets, if you can call them that, were barely wide enough for two people to pass. And yet, despite these constraints, a complete city emerged from the concrete. Life on Hashima Island was like living in a vertical city surrounded by ocean. The island had everything a community needed. Schools where children learned their lessons while listening to the constant rumble of mining equipment below. A hospital that treated everything from minor injuries to serious accidents from the mines. Shops selling daily necessities, a temple for spiritual needs, and even a cinema where residents could escape the harsh reality of their surroundings. There were rooftop gardens, precious green spaces where residents could grow vegetables and children could play. There was a pachinko parlor for entertainment, restaurants serving fresh fish caught from the surrounding waters, and a red light district that catered to the predominantly male mining workforce. Families lived in cramped apartments, often just 1 or 2 rooms, where multiple generations would sleep, eat, and live together. Privacy was a luxury no one could afford. You could hear your neighbors through the thin walls. You knew when they were fighting, celebrating, or mourning. But here's the interesting thing. Many former residents remember Hashima with fondness. Despite the cramped conditions, a tight-knit community formed. Children played together in the corridors. Neighbors looked out for each other. Everyone shared the same struggle, the same risk, the same island. It created bonds that lasted lifetimes. The island was completely self-sufficient. Supplies arrived by boat several times a week, but otherwise, Hashima was its own world, a concrete fortress floating in isolation, where life revolved entirely around the coal that lay beneath. But beneath this community life was a darker reality that we cannot ignore. The work in the mines was brutal. Miners descended thousands of feet below the ocean floor in cramped, dangerous conditions. The temperature underground could reach over 30 degrees Celsius, with nearly 95% humidity. Men worked in spaces so narrow they could barely stand. The air was thick with coal dust. Cave-ins, flooding, and explosions were constant threats. And during World War II, the darkness on Hashima grew even deeper. Between 1943 and 1945, the Japanese government conscripted forced laborers, mostly Korean and Chinese workers, to work in the mines. These men were brought to the island against their will, forced to work in the most dangerous sections of the mines, given minimal food and harsh treatment. Many died from accidents, malnutrition, or exhaustion. The exact number remains disputed, but estimates suggest hundreds lost their lives in the pursuit of coal to fuel Japan's war machine. This history remained buried for decades, but it's a crucial part of Hashima's story. The island represents both the remarkable industrial achievement of early modern Japan and the human cost of that achievement. Progress built on suffering. Concrete monuments standing on unmarked graves. By the 1960s, Japan's energy needs were changing. The country was shifting from coal to petroleum. It was cheaper, cleaner, and easier to transport. Coal mines across Japan began closing. Hashima Island's fate was sealed. On January 15, 1974, the mine officially closed. Within months, the island was completely abandoned. Over 5,000 people packed their belongings and left. The exodus was remarkably quick and orderly. Families who had lived there for generations walked away, taking only what they could carry. Apartments were left with furniture still inside. Schools had books on the desks. The cinema still had its last reels. It was as if someone hit pause on an entire city. And then silence. For over 3 decades, Hashima Island sat abandoned, slowly surrendering to nature. Typhoons battered the buildings. Salt water eroded the concrete. Plants began growing through cracks in the walls. Windows shattered. Roofs collapsed. The island became a ghost town in the truest sense, a place where thousands of lives had been lived, now occupied only by wind and waves. Urban explorers and photographers were the first to rediscover Hashima. Sneaking onto the island illegally, they captured haunting images of the ruins. Staircases leading nowhere, corridors filled with rubble, views through broken windows out to the endless ocean. These images spread online, and Hashima Island captured global imagination. The ruins became a powerful symbol of industrial decline, of impermanence of human achievement, of nature's patient reclamation of human spaces. Philosophers and artists found meaning in the ruins. Environmentalists saw a warning. Historians saw a preserved moment in time. Recognizing the growing interest, Japanese authorities began offering limited tours in 2009. Today, visitors can take boats from Nagasaki and walk on designated paths around the island. You can't enter the buildings. They're too dangerous, slowly collapsing. But you can stand on the island and feel the weight of its history. Standing there, surrounded by crumbling concrete and the sound of waves, it's impossible not to feel the ghosts of Hashima. The children who played in these corridors. The miners who descended into darkness each day. The forced laborers who suffered and died. They're all there in the silence. In 2015, Hashima Island was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site as part of Japan's Sites of Japan's Meiji Industrial Revolution. This recognition acknowledged the island's role in Japan's rapid industrialization and its remarkable engineering achievements. But the designation was immediately controversial. South Korea and China objected, arguing that UNESCO recognition ignored the forced labor history. They argued that honoring the industrial achievement without prominently acknowledging the human rights abuses was a form of historical erasure. Japan eventually agreed to create an information center in Tokyo that addresses the forced labor issue, but debates continue about how history should be remembered and what we choose to honor. Hashima Island stands as a reminder that heritage is complicated. History is rarely just one story. If Hashima Island looks familiar, you might have seen it in the 2012 James Bond film Skyfall. Director Sam Mendes used the island as inspiration for the villain's abandoned lair. While they didn't actually film on Hashima, they built sets based on its appearance. The film introduced millions of people to the island's haunting aesthetic. The island has also appeared in video games like Call of Duty, Black Ops, and various documentaries. It's become a cultural touchstone for abandoned places, post-apocalyptic aesthetics, and the fragility of human civilization. There's something about Hashima that resonates in our contemporary moment, a time when we're acutely aware of environmental change, economic disruption, and the impermanence of the systems we build. Hashima Island is many things. It's an engineering marvel, a ghost town, a World Heritage Site, a symbol of industrial ambition, a reminder of human suffering, a tourist attraction, a film location. But perhaps most powerfully, it's a place where you can stand and see the entire arc of industrial civilization in miniature, the rapid rise, the peak achievement, the sudden decline, and the slow return to nature. In just 84 years, Hashima went from barren rock to bustling city to abandoned ruin. It's a compressed history that tells us something profound about human ambition, the cost of progress, and the temporary nature of everything we build. The concrete will continue to crumble. The ocean will continue to erode. Eventually, Hashima will return to being just a rock in the sea. But for now it stands a monument, a warning, and a remarkable piece of history frozen in concrete and time. If you found this story fascinating, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into unusual places and forgotten histories. And let me know in the comments, would you visit Hashima Island? Thanks for watching.